All right, I've already mentioned that we've put the water pump in, but I want to stop right here because this is actually the last step that you'll do to get the old water pump out. We need to take off the pulley that holds the serpentine belt, which is directly below here. You'll notice I have a screwdriver wedged in just to show you what you would need in order to hold that, because obviously there's nothing holding it from spinning, and it would take a number 12 wrench to take those 4 bolts off. The pulley itself can't be removed because there's not enough clearance to the frame, but it can be pushed around so that then you can get at the bolts, like right here, and underneath there's some bolts situated under here as well, so you can pull this off the end of the shaft here and then pull this out of the way both ways to get at those bolts, and then push it this way to get at the bolts that are down below, which can be gotten from inside the front wheel well. The other thing that has to happen is we need to take off all the idlers. You can see back here, this idler is in place, and you can see that without taking that idler off, you wouldn't be able to get to the bolt that's sitting here behind. So all 3 idlers need to come off. One of the things I should point out is that the idler that is part of the serpentine valve tensioner, which is, there's an idler that connects right here, and then the serpentine belt tensioner idler is actually attached to that bolt right there, the lower one. That is a left-hand threaded bolt. Please note that. So when you go to take it off, you actually have to pull it towards you rather than push it towards the back of the firewall. I did damage the bolt in this particular project, and it has really made my life much more difficult. Once you have the idlers off, you can then get at all the bolts. There's a total of 16. 8 of them are number 12s, like 1, 2, and I'll show you on the old water pump what that looks like, and then there's 8 of them that are 14s, and so like this is an example of a 14 right here. The one below one, actually you can't see it below my finger down over there, but you need to take all of those off, and then you'll be able to wiggle. It's kind of difficult, there's not a lot of clearance, but you can actually rotate stuff around, and if you just work with it until you actually are able to pull the water pump up into this area right here. So I just want to show you quickly over here. This is the old water pump. I give you an idea what the sound it makes when it is bad. Sorry, I turned the camera so you could actually hear it. That probably will make for a messy video, but you can see that it was leaking very badly all the way around the water pump. But this is the 8 bolts. These are the 14s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th one is escapes from, oh, right there, actually. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then there are 8 of them that are 12s. I guess it doesn't really matter. There's a gasket right here we're going to install when we get back in, and then this is the gasket. This happens to be the old gasket. The new one will look just like it. You'll notice that it's actually got 2 pieces, a front and a back. They come totally separated, and if you try to put it in that way, I think you'll find it extremely difficult. What I did is basically took a little bit of shellac, and on a few of these points I put a little bit of shellac on both sides, and then took a rubber clamp and clamped it and let that set up. So then the assembly basically is as this one is. This is stuck together only because it's old, but it resulted in an assembly like this. So then when you put the new water pump in, what I did is I slid the water pump in the same way that it came back out without the gasket itself, and got that down and in place, and then very carefully slid this down behind it, if you will, like this, obviously the other way around. Make sure that you notice the way the water pump is situated relative to the gasket, and so then I just slipped this down underneath into here like this, effectively on the engine, and then put a bolt in up here, and then came over to the back side and put a bolt here, which allowed me then to hold everything in place so that I could put all the bolts back in and tighten them back up. You are running relatively small bolts into aluminum, so make sure that you don't over torque them. Use a proper amount of torque. If you're going to do it with just your own muscle, please keep in mind that they're relatively small bolts. Obviously the 14s can be tightened harder or with more force than the 12s. And that'll be the water pump back in, and you reverse the process, and away you go. Also just want to point out that the gaskets technically could be put on wrong. You'll notice which way this punch out is faced here, and how the clearance is, or how the gasket is made with clearances here, and how it's different on this side. So please just take note of that. So when you put it back together, you're putting it back together like this. Obviously you won't be able to put it into the car backwards, but it is possible that this gasket could be in fact put on this side and vice versa, and that would be improper, and not exactly sure how it would misbehave, but you want to do it right if you're going to do it. Also should point out that the bolt holes for the belt drive for the water pump are actually 14s, not 12s. Just want to add the fact that you need to make sure that this pulley is actually slipped over. You can put one bolt in if you want when you reassemble this, but you won't be able to get this pulley on after you have the water pump in place. There's not enough distance to the frame here, so that pulley has to be just slid on and come in as part of the assembly as you put the pump back in place. Obviously, if you've put a bolt in, you'll have to take it back out, because that'll have to be free to slide back and forth like we did during the disassembly process in order to get this bolt in and several other bolts that are in. The other thing you're going to want to do is make sure you take an awl or something relatively sharp and clean all of these grooves of both the water pump and the idler pulleys that are grooved with that. The pump, power steering pump, I believe, is in the back over here. The motor sitting here down below. It's going to be difficult. The motor can be turned with a 22 mm socket. Just turn it slowly till you get high compression, let the compression bleed off, and then you can turn it some more. But you want to make sure that all these grooves are quite clean, because you'll probably find that they're caked up and crudted up pretty badly, and that's going to damage the serpentine belt if it hasn't already. You'll probably want to replace the serpentine belt after this project as part of this whole process anyway, but so you'll want those grooves to be clean so it doesn't damage the new belt.